Ever felt like your whole life was just a collection of apps, habits, and expectations that didn't actually mean anything? We've all been there. The midlife crisis, the existential dread. But meet the OG of the hard reset. Long before the Silicon Valley disruptors, there was a guy named Abraham. He lived in Ur. Think Tokyo meets New York on steroids. High status, high wealth, perfectly curated. He wasn't just surviving, he was the benchmark for success. But in a world where everyone was chasing the next big thing, Abraham felt a glitch, a disconnect, like he was playing a game where the rules had changed, but nobody told him. He had everything, yet he was searching for something real. Then, it happened. Not a DM, not a news alert, a direct command from the source. It wasn't just move houses, it was leave everything. Your country, your people, your security. Go to a land I'll show you. Imagine the risk. In our world, your identity is your network. Leaving means ghosting your professional life, deleting your profiles, and walking into the absolute unknown because of a vibe. People didn't just think he was crazy, they thought he was canceled. Abraham decided to go dark. No goodbye tour, no viral thread explaining his departure. Just the silent, terrifying decision to trade the seen for the promised. He was the first pioneer of true deconstruction. The trek wasn't a scenic road trip. It was a brutal survival story. He wasn't just moving through sand, he was moving through his own doubts. Every mile away from Ur was a mile closer to a version of himself he hadn't met yet. Faith isn't just a feeling. It's a grind. There were days of silence, nights of freezing cold, and the constant question, did I actually hear that voice? Or am I just lost? This is where the story gets gritty. Then came the first big fumble. Famine hit, and they headed to Egypt. This wasn't a vacation, it was a desperate pivot for survival. And here, the hero of faith shows his human side, the side that's driven by pure anxiety. To save himself, he told Sarah to play the sibling card. He was so afraid of the system that he compromised his own integrity. It's a relatable moment of weakness, when the pressure of the real world makes you forget your calling. Sarah was caught in the crossfire of his fear. She wasn't just a partner, she was a casualty of a moral compromise. The tension in their relationship started here, a crack in the power couple facade that would take years to heal. Then came the contract, a dark, visceral night where the source made it official. Not a digital signature, but an ancient covenant of blood and fire. Look at the stars, he was told. That's your legacy, beyond your capacity to count. But time is a predator. Years go by, and the global glow-up promised to Abraham felt like a dead link. No kids, no land, just more desert. When the system says you're supposed to be winning, but you're just waiting, that's the real test. Then came the toxic workplace drama. Desperate to build the brand, Sarah pressured Abraham into a surrogate situation with Hagar. It wasn't a cultural tradition, it was a systemic failure of empathy. Sarah used her status to solve a personal problem. Ishmael was born, but the peace was gone. The fallout was devastating. Jealousy, microaggressions, and eventually, Hagar and her son were cast out. A harrowing survival story of a woman wronged by the very system she was forced to serve. 24 years in, and the source hits him with a rebrand. Abram becomes Abraham, father of many. A public commitment to a promise that still hadn't arrived. It was the ultimate fake it till you make it, but with divine authority. Then, 3 strangers showed up. Not just guests, but messengers from the core. In the heat of the day, they dropped the bomb. This time next year, Sarah will have a son. The room went silent. The atmosphere shifted. Sarah, listening from behind the curtain, laughed. It was the cynical, exhausted laugh of a generation that has been let down too many times. After I'm worn out, shall I have pleasure? She asked. The source just asked back, is anything too hard? But while Abraham's miracle was brewing, the world around them was rotting. Sodom. Not just a city of sin, but a city of pride and excess where the poor were ignored while the elite lived in luxury. It was a social justice crisis reaching its breaking point. Abraham tried to negotiate. If there are 50 righteous people, will you save it? He bargained all the way down to 10. He was searching for a single spark of human decency in a landscape of total apathy, a high-stakes plea for mercy. The fire and brimstone wasn't just a myth, it was a catastrophic hard reset for a civilization that had lost its capacity to care. Lot and his family fled into the night, a high-stakes thriller escape from a falling world. One look back was all it took. Lot's wife couldn't let go of the lifestyle, the status, the past. In our world, it's the danger of nostalgia for a toxic system. When you're called to move forward, looking back can freeze you in place. Finally, the impossible happened. Isaac was born, the heir to the promise. For a brief moment, the influencers were back on top. The legacy was secure, the vibe was restored, and the struggle seemed over. Perfect, right? But then came the prompt that changed everything, the one that feels like a psychological horror movie. Take your son, your only son, and offer him up. It was the ultimate challenge to his loyalty and his sanity. 3 days of total silence. No podcast, no music, no talking. Just the sound of footsteps on stone and the weight of a command that felt like the ultimate betrayal. Abraham was at the edge of his faith and his mind. For a modern audience, the horror isn't just the knife, it's the psychological breach. The son trusts the father, and the father is obeying a voice he can't explain. This is the fear and trembling that defines the human experience of the divine. At the very last second, when the blade was ready to fall, the source shouted, "Stop!" The test was never about the blood. It was about whether Abraham would trust the source more than the outcome. He passed the ultimate vibe check. Provision always follows the sacrifice of the ego. A ram appeared, trapped in the thicket. Abraham realized that the source doesn't just demand, he provides. The legacy wasn't built on his performance, but on his presence. They came down the mountain different. The trauma was real, but so was the transformation. Abraham wasn't just a nomad anymore. He was a bridge between the ancient world and the future. He had survived the hard reset and come out whole. The promise was fulfilled, not just in a single child, but in a legacy that spans the entire globe. Abraham became the father of nations, the original influencer who traded his curated life for a calling that changed everything. So, what's your What's the high-status, hyper-connected life that's keeping you from your something real? Abraham's story isn't just ancient history. It's a blueprint for anyone brave enough to hit the reset button. The journey starts the moment you decide to listen. You don't need a map, you just need to be willing to walk. The story of Abraham is still being written, and your chapter is next. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that hard reset on the subscribe button if this vibe checked out. We'll see you in the next epic saga.